So what is your current fitness regime? Because you're still in great shape, to tell you the truth, and I can tell you've been doing. You look fantastic for your age. There. What is your current
Mhm.
fitness regime like? How many days a week do you do martial arts? How many days do you hit the weights? What other forms of fitness do you do?
Okay, well, first of all, right, I'm a little older, and I always joke that I walked around for 25 years looking like Bruce Lee Hercules. So I want to eat some food now. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like,
Yeah.
I don't, I used to live on chicken breasts and broccoli and all kind of stuff, and I don't do that anymore. And I haven't been, I haven't been in. My focus really hasn't been on being an actor in the last decade. I've been working kind of as a producer, fight choreographer, and writer. And
Yeah.
I've helped a lot of people help with them with their movies because after I made Vampire Assassin, people were so critical about it. I was like, I don't want to take on another movie by myself. I'll just work with this person, that person, whatever. But my regimen, I never used weights ever. I
Really?
never used weights, never. I never used weights because I always thought that I wanted to be able to exercise wherever I was.
Okay.
And but and when you're taking martial arts, you learn all type of amazing calisthenics. In fact, when I was in the army, the stuff that people were doing now, where you see all these gym stuff, we did that in the army. That's what I was doing in the army in 1981. All these drills, where people doing like these burpees and all that. We did all that in the army in the 80s. And it just became mainstream in regular society. So I continued to do those things. I did a lot of isometric exercises, just basic calisthenics, fingertip push-ups, handstand push-ups, but I never did any weights because I always wanted to be able to work out wherever I was. So, like I said, now I don't work out that. I'll put it like this. I still do a little bit of exercise, when I do some training, but as far as like working out when I was in my 30s or whatever, no, I don't do any of that.
Oh, you still look very young for your age, I got to admit. I'm guessing. I'm
Well,
just
thank you
guessing
very much,
about.
but I
No,
feel,
sincerely,
yeah,
sincerely,
you can
you
look
still
young, but I feel like an old man. Trust me. When I get up in the
no
morning, I
seasoned,
feel old.
seasoned.
Seasoned.
That's
Okay, well, I'll
seasoned.
accept that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm guessing you're about mid 40s or so. I'm just guessing.
Oh no, if I was 40, oh my God, are you kidding me? Man, I wish I was 40. Let's just say
Mid 40s, mid 40s. Yeah.
I'm senior light.
Nah. I'm gonna stick with
No,
mid
I
40s
wish
because,
I was in
like I
my
say, you're,
40s.
you're
But
still
you
an
did, oh my
inspiration.
God. You know what? In fact, it's funny you say that because w- when when I got in my 40s, I was actually thinking it was going to be all over. Actually, I think I had made Vampire Assassin. I might have been like 38, 39 when I made Vampire
Yeah.
Assassin. And I thought it would just be over. I thought I wouldn't be able to flip anymore. Anything you ever see me do in a movie, I can still do. I'm like, for example, I can't do 5 backflips in a row, but I can do one and I have to sit down, go take a break and they have to cut the camera and me recover for a minute or two, but I can still do it. So,
Surprised.
you know, and had I known, what's funny is, had I known that I would be able to do it at the age I am now, my life would have been a lot easier because I was really stressing out thinking, oh my God, I only got so much time to be able to do this and my time is running out. And what I think now, like my physical, how I feel now, I know I have at least 10 more years of doing it. I
Yeah.
probably won't do it for 10 more years, but I feel, I don't have any injuries. I don't have any, the only injury I ever had, I did a movie 2 years ago that I, got hurt on, and it took a while to recover from that, but I've never been injured in life or doing a movie. So that has been real beneficial. And, when I get up in the morning, I'm not all crankety and I pretty much, if I stretch a couple of times a week, I can hop right out of bed and just be right at it. So it's teaching me about the perception of age, meaning what I think is when we're young, we have a perception of what we think old people are capable of. And when
Yeah.
you're older, you understand the capabilities and how you saw yourself when you were young. Meaning, at no way did I think I would be, like I said, early senior and to be able to do still splits, still can be fast, still do flips. I thought that would all be over in my early 50s. No. I like I said, how I feel I could do this at least till I'm 70. And like I said, you take Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's in his 60s. You know, a lot of those guys. I mean, in his 70s. A lot of those guys that we grew up with. You know, Lu Thing. Me and him were together a couple of years ago, and he got up and did some moves. It was just as amazing as in the Five Deadly Venoms. So yeah, I think age is just a constraint that when we're young, it's like we value youth so much. It's a
Yeah.
projection onto older people. Yeah,
No, no, I agree with that. I mean, well, like I say, I always believe the meaning of the word age, always generating effort, regardless of anything, because a lot of people just give up after a certain time. So, oh, I'm a bit too old for this, I'm a bit too old for that. No, you can still
true.
keep going as long as you keep looking after yourself. You know, you eat well, you drink a lot of water, you rest properly, and then yeah, everything from there just works out very smoothly for you.
Well, you know what's funny is I always have a little conflict with that statement because I always joke that I say, people say, Ron, yeah, you got to keep going. And I go, now I've been doing this for 35 years. And usually the person is telling me that is younger than I've been doing it. So it's like, yeah, you're 5 years into whatever you're doing. It's very easy to say, keep going. But if you had to add if you knew it was going to take you another 30 years to do what you wanted to do, that's
Yeah.
not a comforting thought. So yeah.
Well, that's understandable. That's fine. So, what inspires your creativity? Because obviously, of course, when any idea comes, it's best to just quickly write it down. But what inspires yourself all the time?
Okay. What inspires me is one, I love martial art movies.
Yes.
I love to create things. I like to make things. I like to think and contemplate and take what I thought about and turn it into something tangible. And then I love people. I like humanity. I love people all over the world. I've been all over the world. I've met wonderful people everywhere I have gone. Everywhere I've met wonderful people. So I've learned through my own experience that we're all one humanity, and that's how I see it. Even though, like in America, I'm classified as a black man and I have to walk through the world as a black man. I understand I'm a human and I have a human connection to everybody in the world. So those three elements inspire me to make movies, meaning that through making movies, I can connect with people, communicate to people, open up, like let's say black people and Chinese people have limited understanding with each other. Well, guess what? Kung Fu is something that binds them. It's like my best friend, Seaton Chang, he's Chinese. I have a best friend who's black and a best friend who's Chinese. So, yeah, so I see it as a community. I see it as kind of like a cultural transmitter that martial art movies is an ultimate force of good in the world, and it can unite people, create understandings about people. And martial arts is just a great thing to do. Martial art gives you an edge. I've always had, when I was in the Army, guys used to call me Monkey Manhunter because anything physical, I was the guy. Matter of fact, one time they used to play football, and they had a football team, and they wanted me to be on it, even though I didn't know how to play football, only because nobody could tackle me. Because I could either outrun them or stand up, withstand their attack. So they literally would throw me in the game, and I'd get the ball and I'd run, and guys would jump on me, but I would stay up until I got to the other side. Except one time their whole strategy was just to tackle me. They didn't even care about getting the ball or anything. They were just like, tackle that guy. So everybody piled on me and, jacked me up. But, so martial arts gives you an edge. It gives you an edge in terms of like developing yourself, in terms of like, let's say you want something. In normal life, most people are shortly connected to the things they want. They want something instantly. They want something right away, and then they got to get it right away or they become frustrated with it. If you're a
Nice.
martial artist, you understand there's a time process in development. You're a martial artist. You remember when you were a white belt, you couldn't do a side kick, and now
Yeah.
you're a red belt. You can do force jumping in the air side kicks. That time of development. So that gives you a little edge in martial arts, and also, just being peaceful. It's kind of like, I don't walk around saying I can beat anybody in the world, but I know I can defend myself against most oncoming attacks. I'm confident I can defend myself. So that gives me an edge. So martial arts really is a cultural, like I said, I think it's a cultural transmitter
So I'll ask you, how did you get into the movie business?
Well, how I got into the movie business, as I was telling you earlier, I basically followed the outline given to me by George Chung and Chuck Jeffries. I got some pictures made. I saved like $1,000 and had some guy film a video and edit it, and I put it all together. And so two things happened. Eric Lee gave me an opportunity. Well, actually, a
Yes.
couple of things happened all at once. Eric Lee gave me an opportunity, so I was in the Deadly Bet movie. But what happened was they used to have the AFM. If you're familiar, AFM is like this market for independent filmmakers in Santa Monica,
Oh yeah.
where
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
comes and markets their films and sell their movies. And so it used to cost $500. You could not go upstairs. You could be in the lobby, like everybody would hang down in the lobby. If you wanted to go upstairs, you had to have a badge, which cost $500. Well, I didn't have a
Yes.
badge, but I had my demo tapes. So I waited to that night where everybody was gone, and I went to the hotel. No nothing, no guards, no security guards, no nothing. So I took about 15 of my videos, and I went from door to door. The companies that I wanted to target, I went, who did martial arts stuff. I went and left my video outside. Well, the next
Yes.
morning, 3 movie companies called me. Actually, maybe it could have been a couple of days. It was one person called me the very next day, but one person was Mark DeSalle, the person that made Jean-Claude Van Damme's movies, and Jeff Speakman.
Oh
And
yeah.
then
Yeah. I remember him.
Davian, a company out of Hong Kong, who was making the Dale Apollo Cooks movies, they called
Yes.
me. And so first I actually went to Mark DeSalle. And when I went to go see Mark DeSalle, he was like, "Ron, we see thousands of people all over the world. You're one of the best we've ever seen." He said,
That's awesome.
and Jean Claude's audience is black. It's like most people go see Jean Claude Van Damme movies are black people in the States. He said, "So we're going to make you kind of like the Michael Jordan of Kung Fu." So he signed me to a 5 picture
Nice.
deal. Yeah, he signed me to a
Yes.
5 picture deal, and it was, so he had Van Damme first, Jeff Speakman was second, I was third, and after me was Daniel Bernhardt. So
Ooh.
yeah, Daniel. So what happened was at the same time, the company from Hong Kong. Oh, I know who was the third. The third person was Frankie Chan. It was
Oh
Frankie
yeah.
Chan that works with Jackie Chan. Is Frankie? He offered me a 3 picture deal, and he offered me a 3 picture deal. But and Frankie was so cool about this. I told him, I said, I had this much larger deal in America with the American company, and he was totally cool. He said, I understand, blah, blah, blah. But he wanted me to stay out there and do 3 movies with him over the course of a year. And, I went to meet Frankie, got to meet Frankie, introduced me to Guy Lai, the guy who's the fight choreographer of Prodigal Son. Got to
Oh
meet him,
yes.
got to meet a whole bunch of other, he introduced me to a lot of people that you see in Kung Fu movies. You go, oh, yeah, so Frankie introduced me. And most importantly, he introduced me to one of my oldest best friends, which is Mike Leader. Frankie introduced me
Yeah.
to Mike, and he also, So that happened. So all 3 of those at the same time. So how I tried to negotiate it was, I got my contract with Mark, but I told him I never did a movie as a lead, so I would like to go so I could kind of learn more. And he balked a little bit. He said, "Okay." He said, "They're not going to make you look as good as I'm going to make you look good. So go ahead." He said, "Just don't make yourself look bad." So I went and did Triple Impact with Davian. And like I said, Frankie Chan was like, he understood I wanted the contract and couldn't work with him on his movies in Hong Kong. So, me and Dale, so that's how I got in, you know, yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, like, because obviously you did the right thing where you kind of wrote your own destiny to a certain extent. Where obviously it is a tough business to get into, isn't it? The acting business, where you'll have a lot of doors slammed in your face. You will have a lot of people saying no, no, but a lot of people give up afterwards, don't they? But then eventually, all those you can hear 100 no's, but eventually one yes will come into fruition.
What's funny about that? I was just talking to another actor who me and him worked together probably 30 years ago. Do you know who Ian Jacklin is?
Oh, Ian's been on my show as well. He's one of the nicest guys I've
Okay.
ever had the opportunity of talking to. Ian, the
Yeah,
former
well, Ian's my
kickboxer.
buddy.
Remember,
Ian's my buddy.
he's
I was
awesome.
actually
Awesome guy.
yeah, he's my buddy. The first movie I did is an independent, only fight choreographer movie. My very first movie that I did like that was Expert Weapon with Ian. And
Oh
Ian's
yeah,
totally
yeah, I've
cool. And
seen
we
this.
were talking about, I lived in California for 35 years. I never got married. I never had any kids. I never left. I pursued it. I took a break because I had started a business because I was getting so many rejections and so many just unfortunate situations. I felt I could just use my energy to do something else. So I had a whole moving company and a business for about 15 years that I did, you know, take that same effort that I was putting into filmmaking and getting rejected. I just created a business. But what I've observed, observation is that if you've done this once, you want it for the rest of your life. That's my observation.
That is
Because
true. That is
everybody
true.
almost that I know, with very few percent, I'd say 5%, everybody comes back. Everybody comes back. They may
Yes,
be gone 10
yes, that is true.
years, they may be gone 20 years, but they want, because it's kind of like one of those things. It's just like a realization of self-expression. It's kind of like
Yes,
to be able to manifest something that you had in your head gives you kind of like a sense of power, and it gives you a sense of freedom. So when you have to leave that and maybe go get a job or not work, or you see all your friends, it's kind of like there was a time I couldn't even, when I was trying to get away from martial art movies, I couldn't even get away from them. I can remember there's a place called Big Bear, and I had moved out there, and I was broke, didn't have had very little money, and I'm in this little town, isolated on top of this mountain, and every store I went in had 20 copies of Vampire Assassin. It was crazy. I know it was crazy. It was like every video. I could not get away from vampires from being in movies. I can remember one time I was in a video store somewhere and I was sick of movies and I heard a voice. I was like, that voice sounds familiar. And I turned, it was me and Dale, in Raw Target in a video
oh
store.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can't even get away from it.
No, you can't.
When I had my moving business, I would meet people who had my posters, who, people say, are you a boxer? Guys who were fans of mine and stuff like that. I can remember one move. I moved this guy. We were moving him for about 20 hours. And he was like,
Yeah,
you're a little older. You probably can't do that stuff anymore. I said, yeah, I can do it. He said, no. And so I just did a backflip for him right there. And it blew his mind. He was like, oh, man, you still can do it and blah, blah, blah. So, I think people who have done it, people who've done it once, it's kind of like a sensation that you want to be a part of. And like I said, my observation is that everybody I've ever worked with comes back at some point.
well, of course, yeah, because like say, I mean, I can remember when I started doing acting myself, and one of the things my drama teacher said to me, and bless him, I still kept in touch with him even till today, and this is 20 years later. And he said, look, regardless of how many times you're going to be told no, please don't give up after the third no. A lot of people actually give up and say, well, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm being told no, no, no. Because 90% of the acting business is rejection. 90 to 95%, you're going to get rejected. But it's how you turn that negativity into a positivity and just say, okay, I don't need to, I need to work on this next time, I need to work on that next time. One of the interesting things I read when I interviewed Jeff Speakman, if he's listening, a big shout out to him. He said,
Brother
when
Jeff,
he was,
how you doing?
he's. I still can't get over sometimes that I got to speak to him. I still can't get over. I spoke to you and Ian at once, so there's a good little interconnection I've got going over here. And one of the things he said was when he was auditioning, when he was like doing like the readings for people, he understood what the casting directors were looking for. Be like, okay, they're not looking for that, they're looking for this instead. They're looking for this but not looking for that, so I'm going to implement this. And then when I step to the stage and say, okay, I'll do it, and then when he realized, all right, so yeah, this is what we were looking for all along, because he paid attention to what he was doing in there. That is how you go by it. I mean, like, he understood what they were looking for and how he went by achieving it, and it worked out for the best. I mean, I still can't get over watching. I can watch The Perfect Weapon so many times, and I can never get bored of it. And same thing when
most people don't know this.
Yeah.
Most people don't know this, but Jeff Speakman was in Lionheart.
Oh, he was. Yeah, I spoke that about him as well.
Yeah.
I can remember. I'm so sorry. I can remember when I said to him, "Sir, I saw you were working with Van Damme, and I can remember your dialogue saying this. You were like, Miss Caldera, the house like talked about your unsecure marker and like, don't let her out the
Hmm.
door. She's heading towards the front door now, sir. And I said
Yeah.
that, and he was quite like he was laughing about that on camera. I'll send you the whole
Hmm.
link as well. And speaking of Van Damme, you got to work with Van Damme on the movie The Quest. You were one of the stunt coordinators and that. I mean, because Van Damme was actually directing the movie, wasn't he?
Yeah, he directed. I wasn't a stunt coordinator. I was just a stunt man. What happened was that
Yeah.
we were making Bloodsport 2 in another part of Thailand. And so one of
Oh yeah.
the casting director was casting The Quest and Bloodsport 2. Well,
Okay.
the casting director wanted me to be in The Quest, but some other people didn't want me to be in The Quest. But they still gave me a job, which was cool. I got, we had a lot of fun, and a lot of us, it was great. They had a lot of talented martial artists, and we had some incredible times. So I don't regret it at all.